StrayAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative that is go get an energy that moves any one of us, including yourself. It's going to make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques underneath the umbrella of one unified philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is we are talking about moving yourself to, actually, let me give you the right topic. It is Get Busy, is what we're going to call it today here. And it is all about moving yourself to action. But before we get into any of this, let me remind you all of two things. First of all, my daily motivation and Monday motivation messages guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point to start your week. All you got to do to get these is to be a member of my text community. It is free to join. I will give you the number to text me. It is 305-384-6894. Send a text to that number right now. And once we start sending that message out again, anybody who's in my text community, which will be you, you'll be getting that message straight to your phone. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. That is the place where I do all my coaching. If you would like to have me as your direct coach, we coach people on mindset, strategy, systems, and accountability, amongst other things. Yes, coach. My son is sitting here with me watching TV, but obviously he can hear me. We coach people on mindset, strategy, systems, and accountability. You want to have me as your direct coach, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That link is down below in the description to this episode. All that out the way. Let's get into the topic here today, which again is getting busy. Let me finish making this post real quick. So we got a lot of things going on here all at once, as you can maybe hear in my background. But actually, you shouldn't hear in my background. We got good editors over here. But now let's get into the topic, which is getting busy. Now, this topic here today, folks, is one that I do mean literally, because it's all about moving yourself to action and putting more effort and productivity out there with an eye on keeping your eye on what actually gets you closer to your goals. So as I get into my points, this approach is going to become even more clear. So I don't really need to get that much more background on this one, because again, this topic is direct, it's not a metaphor. Topic again is get busy. Let's get right to it. Point number one. Do things that do not scale to separate yourself from lazy competition. Do things that do not scale to separate yourself from the lazy competition. Most of your competition is lazy. So when I say the lazy competition, I don't mean everybody, but I mean most of them. Most of the people who you are competing against for opportunity, for attention, for money, for clients, for customers, for success, for whatever it is you're trying to do, most of them are lazy. Most of them are not willing to go the extra mile. Most of them are not willing to go the first mile or the second mile, let alone the extra mile. Whatever extra means, you need to be the person who is. Remember what I've told you. The opportunity, folks, is always in the opposites. The opportunity is in doing the opposite of what most people are doing. Most people are lazy. Don't be lazy. Most people won't do the extra work. Do the extra work. You need to, first of all, find out what the extra work is, and that's what you need to do. Okay, so the concept of scaling, folks, many people talk about scaling in business or scaling in just scaling, period. Scaling is about finding an outcome that can be multiplied through resources outside of simple human effort. In other words, you put in the same amount of effort or increased effort, but you get a multiple of results. That's what scaling is about. That's the general concept of scaling. And many people, especially in business, are always looking to scale things. I'm talking about scaling, period, in life, whether we're talking business, your personal stuff, or anything that you're doing. All right. Finding an outcome that can be multiplied through resources outside of simple effort. That's scaling. So email, for example, allows you to scale sending messages to people above and beyond with what you could do with physical snail mail. So, for example, if I wanted to write physical snail mail to everybody who listens to the show, I might have to write thousands, tens of thousands, millions of letters by hand. That would be a lot of writing. My fingers would probably get cramped if I was doing it. I had to write snail mail to each one of you. But if, on the other hand, I sent an email blast out to all of you, all I had to do was get everybody's email address, put them all on the list, and I can click a couple of buttons and send a message to 10,000 people all at the same time. So email allows me to scale sending mail to people. And there are companies that do mass mailings, and they could get a bunch of mail sent out to a bunch of people as well, as opposed to snail mail, me physically doing it myself. The whole point is that's what scaling is. Now, although we have printers now and they can do this, you used to have to write any letter that you sent in the mail, and you had to write the address and the return address on every single envelope you sent. actually take the letters to the mailbox or to the post office. None of that is necessary when you do email because it allows you to scale the conversation. Even if you have a physical mailing service these days, you still have to connect with the service. You got to pay them the service. You got to check on what they're sending out. None of this is necessary if you're sending an email to 1,000 people. So email, again, scales the whole process. You do it from your phone with very little effort. That is a form of scaling. What I'm explaining here is that you want to find ways to do things that don't scale. Right? That's the whole point. You want to find ways to do things that don't scale. And the reason why you want to do things that don't scale, because they are still valuable and you can't achieve them through scaling because it removes some of the maybe the personal touch from it. It removes some of the directness from it. And again, people can tell this, especially these days when everybody's trying to scale everything. I'm going to get to that a little bit more as we go further into this episode. You want to find these things that don't scale, but they are valuable and that you can do more of. Okay. Don't scale. They are valuable. You can do more. Only way to do this is with more effort. Now, here's a place where I will tell you that you want to put effort in. Now, there are times in life that I'm going to tell you that you don't want to keep putting in more effort, where hard work is not your key. Hard work is not the solution to your problem. This is an area in which hard work is a thing that you want to use. Okay, so it's not always the thing. Hard work is not always the fix-all, but in this situation, hard work is useful. There's no way to automate doing something that doesn't scale, by definition. If it doesn't scale, you can't automate it, which is exactly the point, which means the only way anyone can do a lot of it is by simply doing a lot of it. You can't scale it. There's no system, there's no app, there's no software that can do it for you. You're either going to do it or you're not. That's the point. For example, if you're a door-to-door salesperson, you cannot scale how many doors you knock on over the course of a day. There's no scaling knocking on doors. Again, at least not you individually. Now, you can have other people selling for you. That you can scale, but you can't scale how many doors you personally knock on in a day. In other words, you can't multiply that. All you can do is just get from door to door faster and faster and close your sales or whatever is going to happen, moving on faster and faster. Yes, faster. You can knock on 10 different doors. You can't, knock on 10 different doors at the exact same time. All right, that's impossible. You have to physically walk up to every door that you knock on. So the only way that you would separate yourself through this activity, a thing that doesn't scale, is by determining that you will simply knock on more doors than everybody else. All right, that's it. That's the only thing you can do if you want to outdo your competition in this area. Now, again, is this an area that matters? Is this something that can produce a high ROI? And is this something you can do? If it fits all three, then that's an opportunity for you. Again, there's no software or app that can do this. You simply have to put in the effort. So what you're looking for here, if I have to summarize this first point, is you're looking for things that you can do that require human effort that other people are simply not willing to do and are very valuable if you can do more of it than everybody else. Again, and that also depends on your ability to do it. Are you actually good at knocking on doors? Is it good when you knock on a whole bunch of doors? Does that lead to a lot of outcome for you? The answer is yes. Then you may want to look into doing more of that and figuring out how you can do more of it. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is get busy. Point number 2, do things the long way to build skill through repetition. Do things the long way. What does that mean? That means not using technology or software to do work or thinking for you, but instead do it yourself with the goal of building skills and learning how things actually work. That's what I mean by the long way. In other words, you're not allowing technology or some type of software or system to do work for you that you could do yourself, because in the process of doing it yourself, you are learning abilities that you otherwise would not learn because the system and the software will be doing it for you. It's doing all your thinking for you. It's figuring things out for you. It's kind of like when we were in school. I don't know how they do it these days in school, but when I was in school, they would have us, we'd be in math class, for example. You had to show your work. We have a math test, and the test would offer the test would ask a question, and we would have to show our work. That's what the test was like. Sit down and wait. Let me finish recording. Okay. The test would give us an equation or a question that we had to answer, and it would say you must show your work. You can't just give us the answer. You have to show your work. In other words, you couldn't just plug it into the computer and get the answer and give the answer. That was not acceptable. You had to show how you worked through it. In other words, you had to prove that you knew how to work through the problem the long way. Now, was this actually useful for real life application? The answer is absolutely not. This was a complete waste of time. That is another condemnation of the school system in the United States of America, which I'm not going to get to in today's America. Yes. I'm not going to get into that in today's episode, but I have gotten into it in other episodes, and we'll get into it in the future. But it's an example of having to do things the long way. You want to find something you can do the long way that actually matters, something that actually has substance. So while I fully expect within the next 5 to 10 years, for example, there will be a way that you can click on one button and have an entire website or an entire sales funnel built for you, specifically for your product, service, or offer. I do believe that's coming. Next 5 to 10 years, it might not take that long. I'm probably overestimating. You'll be able to click one button and get your whole website built, and it will be a professional looking, smooth website that is responsive. It can be fitted for the tablet or the phone or the desktop, and you won't have to do any of the formatting or designing yourself, because I've seen some crimes against web design by a bunch of you entrepreneurs out there. Some of you are guilty of this looking at your own websites. They are crimes against design. And that's all going to be eliminated because you'll be able to click one button, it'll do all of it for you at a super low price. This will eliminate, guess what this will eliminate? It'll eliminate people like you making crimes, committing crimes against web design with your logo designs and your graphic design and that shit that you call a website that you are passing off right now that is completely unacceptable. It's not going to be happening anymore because software is going to take care of that problem. Okay. At the same time that I'm telling you this, it eliminates the skill of learning how to build a landing page or how to build a sales page or how to build a sales funnel. You won't need to learn that skill anymore. But here's the issue. Here's what I'm saying. That is a very valuable skill, even if you were just using it to assess what's working or what's not on somebody else's site. See, one of the things that I can do is I work with many entrepreneurs who I work with. I help them build their sales funnels and their landing pages and write their copy and put their websites together. Why? Because I know how to do it. Because I started building websites back when you had to do it via HTML, and it wasn't this all front end stuff. You had to actually understand HTML. You had to understand some light coding. I'm not a coder, but I understood coding on a light level and good enough that I could build a website and have it functioning, and I could take payments and do all that stuff. I know how to do that stuff. And because I developed that skill is valuable to me to this day. I use it as an asset because I can trade it for money. Now, if you don't have to develop the skill, then you'll never have an asset that you can trade for money. Now, what if everything in life becomes just push one button and everything's done? Well, who are you? And I'm putting a pause there because I want you to think about that. Who are you? If everything becomes push button and you get everything done through pushing a button and no human skill is needed, well, what do we need you for? What do you bring to the table? You should know. You need to have an answer to that question. I can answer the question. Can you answer the question? You should be thinking about that because there will be software. There will be software that replaces the need for you doing manual labor. Much of the manual labor that many of us is doing these days, we won't need a human to do it anymore. What can you do if software replaces what you do right now? So knowing what's working and what's not working on someone else's site and why it's not working, see, AI can't do that. I can do it because I had to do it for myself. And I've done it for others. I do it for others still to this very day. So even though AI can build the site, it still can't diagnose what's working and what's not and why or why not something should be in a place or where it shouldn't be. You need to know in your industry and in your spaces what you can do that software can't do, that a computer chip cannot do. You got to stay ahead of it. I talked about this when I did my series on AI and what's coming. So doing things the long way, folks, what it does is it builds skills that cannot be built when you are using shortcuts and tools to do the work and the thinking for you. If I click a button, for example, these days, I never really got good at video editing, despite the fact that I have probably 15,000 videos out, all told, all over the internet, probably more than that. I never really learned video editing. And these days we use software to create clips and put our videos out and do things like that. I use software for all that stuff. I never learned a long way to edit video. Therefore, I cannot trade on video editing skill because I never developed the skill. And I'm completely fine with that. So you need to know what skills you're okay with never learning and which ones you probably should learn because they'll be worth something in the future. Now, this requires a little bit of clairvoyance because you need to be able to understand what skills cannot be replaced by a computer chip versus what can, because you don't want to develop a whole bunch of skills in a long way that can all be replaced and now we don't need you anymore. All right, so you got to be a little bit insightful here in thinking about what is actually going to be valuable versus what's not. The point is you need to develop some long skills, long tail skills that will always be valuable no matter what. I told you about this when I talked about force multipliers and future proof abilities, conversation skills, public speaking skills, the ability to sell, the ability to build relationships. All these are future proof and force multiplier abilities. No technology will ever replace those. As long as you're a human who has those, there will always be opportunity for you. If you don't have them, you're going to be in trouble. at the same time. So doing things the long way builds skills that cannot be built via shortcuts and tools. And yes, speed is imperative. Let's be clear. At the same time, learning and having knowledge is also important. So there's a flip side to that. So yes, speed is the bottom line. You want to do things as quickly as possible and execute and iterate and change as quickly as possible. At the same time, you better have some skill that you can use that speed for. Because again, technology is faster than all of us. So if it's just about speed, then again, what do we need you for? So you got to balance both of these ideas in your head at the same time. Wise person can do that. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is get busy. Number 3, become a mass producer. Mass producer of what? Now, when I say mass producer, I don't necessarily mean or only mean something like content. I, for example, am a mass producer of content, but you don't have to be a mass producer of content, but you need to be a mass producer of something. You can be a mass producer of cold reach outs to people with whom you like to do business. If you just open a car wash in a neighborhood, you can be a mass producer of outbound phone calls to everybody in your zip code and the neighboring 3 zip codes to become, don't do that, to become customers of your car wash. All right, that's one place that you can become a mass producer. All right, what's stopping you from doing that? Of course, nothing's stopping you from doing that. You can become a mass producer of that. So I used this example earlier. If you're a door-to-door salesperson, you can become a mass producer of knocking on doors. All right, what's stopping you from being a mass producer of knocking on doors to go get yourself a new customer for your car wash or your door-to-door salesperson business, selling vacuum cleaners or whatever it is that you're selling? You can knock on 50% more doors than everybody else does. All right, can you do that? All right, that is a form of mass production. You could knock on more doors than everybody else in the region. Just find out who's knocking on the most doors and just decide you're going to beat them. All right, even if you're not that good at doing what you do, if you mass produce it, you will get better and you'll draw attention to yourself. And that can eventually either lead to you getting better because you're getting so much practice, or you can still just produce more results because even though you're not that good, because of volume alone, you're making up for what you lack in ability. All right, either one can work. Hopefully you can do both. So knocking on more doors gives you more opportunities. Using myself as an example, I told you I've created 30,000 pieces of content over the last 20 years. I've never had any piece of content go viral. And when I say viral, I mean it reached millions of people in like one day. That's never happened. I've never had that occur. But in the big picture, my material has been seen, read, accessed, and heard over 100 million times, probably closer to 200 million times if we could count everything. That's happened not because I'm so amazing at what I do. It's because I'm a mass producer. I have an ability to mass produce material. And mass produce doesn't necessarily mean you got to do this big bulk in one day. It just means, can you be consistent over an extended period of time? This show, for example, has come out every day for damn near 3,000 days in a row. That is a mass production. I was putting videos out when I was doing basketball. Every day I put a basketball video up online for 10 years straight. That is mass production. Can you produce at that level? I write articles and emails, interviews on my email list. You get emails from me all the time. Why? Mass producing, often more than one email in a day. That's mass production. Can you do that? You'll get a lot better at your skills when you're doing it. And I want you to notice that these things that I'm mentioning that I've mass produced, these are all of my zone of genius. I tell you, my zone of genius is talking to individuals, talking to groups, and writing. And what do I mass produce in? Talking to individuals, talking to groups, and writing. All right, do you think that's a coincidence? It's not. No one piece of anything that I've created has blown everything up. Now, I wish I did have a couple things that go viral. Maybe I'd get like a much bigger fan base in a very short period of time, but it hasn't happened that way for me. I had to build it step by step over the course of 2 decades just by mass production. And I'm telling you that not to impress you, but to impress upon you. You can do the exact same thing in your lane, in your space, your way. You don't have to do the same thing that I did, but you can take the same principles and apply it to what you do. The challenge is you got to get busy, which is today's topic. Let's recap today's class. Again, it is get busy. This is a literal topic, no metaphor. Number 1, do things that do not scale to separate yourself from the lazy competition. There's a lot of lazy competition around you. You want to make sure you are not one of the lazy competition that is being surpassed by other people. So figure out what doesn't scale, meaning you cannot do it at the push of a button. It requires actual manual work, and you are willing to do more of it for longer than everybody else. That is an opportunity within itself. Number 2, do things the long way to build skill through repetition. In other words, doing things that are not so simple to do and learning it the long way where you have to really figure it out and think. That develops a skill, and hopefully you're developing a skill that is future proof and a force multiplier because it will always be valuable no matter where you go, no matter what changes in terms of technology. And number three, become a mass producer. This doesn't mean it's just something like content. You can be a mass producer of cold reach outs to people with whom you like to do business. You can be a mass producer of knocking on doors. You can be a mass producer of, if you want to make content, you can be a mass producer of that. You can be a mass producer of making products and offers and putting them out to your audience. I heard a guy talk about how every week he launched a brand new webinar to try to sell his course, a different webinar every week. And eventually he found one that worked after he did 30 webinars, and that one made him $1 million. So you can be a mass producer of a whole lot of different things, folks. Don't limit yourself to just one way of thinking. And you want to get some deep help on this to help shorten your learning curve and get to your results quicker. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where you can have me as your coach, where we focus around 4 pillars of mindset, strategy, systems, and accountability for personal and professional development for high-level performers like yourself. Again, that's at workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre, all